So hi everybody, my name is Tara Samuels. I am with MSB Resources and welcome to our fourth edition of the Open to Work Elevator Spotlight Call hosted by MSB Resources. We're going to go through some introductions today. We're going to go through and highlight our special guest, Ian Bingham. I'm also going to highlight Bernadette, who is my counterpart at MSB. But I want to just let everybody know this is a very casual forum. Please don't be nervous. This is really meant to be a forum, to be a safe space, to feel welcoming, to help you in your open to work journey, to ask questions. We have some fun questions prepared for Ian, but we want to make it interactive. So I just want everyone to just feel this is not, you're not going to be talked to. Let's kind of talk amongst ourselves and chit chat and share ideas. And if you're comfortable, share your LinkedIn URL in the chat so that you can all connect, get to know one another outside of this call. But what we are going to kind of walk through is a little bit about MSB. We're going to allow Ian to share his story and his background. And the main purpose of this call is to highlight the folks on here that are open to work and to give you your kind of your elevator pitch, your audition. I always like to think of those times you could probably think of a conference maybe you've gone to, you bump into someone in the elevator and they're like, hey, so Tara, what do you do? And you're like, oh, I got to get my elevator pitch. So it's kind of meant to be that forum, if you will. But so let me introduce Ian. Ian is pretty much the guy that when I ask him to do stuff, I don't know why he's so nice to me, but he is always willing to be kind of my guinea pig on just helping the industry. He and I have known each other for a really long time. We both reminisced how we moved out of Chicago. He has a long career in multifamily. One of the best guys you'll ever know, very well networked, very well immersed in the industry. And I do love to ask our spotlight guests 3 words to describe themselves. And I know we kind of pushed you out of your comfort zone a little bit, Ian, on this one, but I love your answers. So will you take a couple minutes and just share a mix of personal and professional with the group, a little bit about your story?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's funny, takes a lot to get me out of my comfort zone. But introspection is probably one of the only places that you can do that to me. So appreciate that email and it took me a few minutes to kind of think through it. So hopefully my 3 resonate. But yeah, I've been in the industry over 25 years now. Stealing from a real good friend of mine, I think you're supposed to stop counting at 20 and just use the over, right? That way people can't reverse engineer the math and figure out how old you are. So a little over 25 years. I started like so many of us on site, so a lot of us share that boots up story. I was really lucky to work with a company at that time, Village Green Companies, out of Michigan, who was an owner operator, did everything from Class A high-rise development to value add joint ventures with a lot of institutional capital. And so, I had a lot of really good learning experiences and worked my way forward through the first decade of my career on the operations path. So kind of at the peak of that, I oversaw as a vice president assets in 5 different states and had several direct report regionals that rolled up to me. And through that, developed a lot of the relationships with that institutional capital or with the smaller private equity firms that we would manage for. So when an opportunity came available to continue to grow the third party side of the company, it was kind of a natural progression because I held most of those relationships to move into that seat. So as crazy as it sounds to me, that was about 13 years ago. So I spent pretty much half my career in a business development role. But I very often am pulled back in, harken back to the operations side of my career, which I think helps in what I do because I still share that skill set and that empathy. But since then, I've worked for groups like CF Real Estate Services that merged several years ago with a group called Roscoe, creating RPM Living. And then today, I find myself with Buckingham Companies, where I've been for a little over a year and a half. We're an Indianapolis-based owner, developer, and property manager, focusing our efforts in the Midwest and the Southeast.
That is quite the pedigree. The reason why we asked someone like Ian to join this call is because by the time this call is over, his insights coupled with this networking and MSB's insights should hopefully arm you with some extra knowledge and some motivation and some support to move on in your job journey. So let me introduce my counterpart. So Bernadette has been with MSB for a very long time. She, I think, knows where all the bodies are buried. But Bern, will you introduce yourself and kind of give everybody a little bit about your story?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I am Bernadette Bush. I worked on site and in the regional office for a lot of years with what was TGM Associates, is now TGM Communities, I believe. Through working there, my region wound up getting sold off. I got laid off. I found myself sort of in this situation that I wasn't expecting. We had used MSB as our recruiting firm, which sort of just led to me coming here. I had a few interviews, a few offers that I wasn't able to take. And just because of the way everything shook out, I wound up at MSB, which has been the most amazing experience. It's funny, yesterday I had a doctor's appointment, which I still go to my doctor that was at my original property, which is about 35 minutes from me now. And as I was driving by, I'm like, man, in 2008, if I knew that I was gonna like be in this industry forever and like where I'd be today, that'd be wild. So just really cool to drive by there and reminisce and see and then meet you all today.
I appreciate you being on. Thank you for everyone who signed up and has agreed to participate. So I'm Tara, and I am really passionate about doing these calls because if you follow me on LinkedIn, you may have seen that over several months ago, I found myself open to work over the summertime. And I found that the best way to find my next opportunity, frankly, was to give back to the industry. And so the way I was doing that was just creating these spotlight calls. And it felt natural to continue doing this at MSB, partly because their name is Resource. We want to be a resource for you in the industry. And it really kind of fills my heart to help other people. So whether you're working with MSB Resources or not, we still want to help. So we're really excited to have this today. Just a quick highlight, I'm not going to read this to you, but if you are not familiar with what we do, we are a true recruiting headhunting firm. We've been in business for over 20 years. Most of the candidates that we work with are flying under the radar. They're passive, they're looking for their next opportunity, but aren't necessarily displaying the green banner, so to speak. We are multifamily specific. And what I love is there's more people like Bernadette on this team who have a very high tenure in MSB. So you're working with a firm that has a lot of experience and familiarity with our industry. And I will tell you one thing too, my main focus, I think this is so ironic, but Brad, our founder, is so smart to do this. Name one recruiting company that's trying to go help you keep your people. So we are launching Workplace Solutions, which is really a partnership with Dr. David Wyman, who you see here on the screen, who has taken his years and years and years of experience as a psychologist to really help companies, whether it's a supplier company or an owner-manager company, keep their people, find your blind spots, prevent the turnover from happening in the first place. So our mission is really to help people find their next place, but also to keep people where they are. So that is a little bit about MSB. What we're going to do is ping pong a little bit, just so you know the format. So Ian, this is going to be one of the questions for you. We would love to have your take on this. And then once Ian finishes a question, we're going to highlight our first candidate and then kind of go back and forth like that. The order of the candidates are how you guys came in and signed up for the call. I think Michelle is first, but I don't see her. So I think TJ, you would be next. in line. But Ian, let's kick it off to you. So it's no secret that so much of our hiring is done virtually. The interviewing process is virtual. A lot of remote and hybrid work is happening. So what kind of tips and tricks would you give to really make that strong impression virtually?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm gonna elaborate probably even more than just the simplicity of the question. So, I think on the front end of that, there's some no-brainers, but I've I've had a lot of interviews, and even at this point in my career, we still with the last few companies I've been with, we still do a team interview kind of concept, and that's not necessarily to say that there's 4 people in a room, peppering you at once, but you may interview with 3 or 4 or 5 people before you get that position, and they may be peers, they may be adjacent to your position, but you're going to be interacting with them. And so, as so many companies strive for that cultural fit, I think it's very important going into it, knowing that you're probably not just going to interview with the hiring manager and human resources. You're probably going to interview with several people along that chain. And so, what to prepare for. I think we learned during COVID when we really all started doing this, the Zoom Teams, your cameras on, be prepared for that. Before I joined even this call, I was in there and I was messing around with my backgrounds to see how it contrasted the shirt I was wearing. And by the way, those of you who know me and I see some of you laughing, that's not me. Like am certainly not vain or overly concerned with apparel, but in the same token, do that before you jump on one of these calls. Make sure that, fine, if you're in a room that's not as organized as you'd like it to be, put up that background or blur it so that there's not stories about you being told that you don't necessarily want to illustrate forward facing. But when you're in those conversations, the reason I bring up that you're going to speak with several people, consistency. Make sure that the experience that you're having with one person kind of shines through, and it may be on different days, and you may have different things going on, but those people are all going to circle up at the end of this and share their feedback. And so you want to have as much consistent feedback as possible. For me, someone that is confident and strong is very important. And sometimes that means faking it a little bit. But if you're out there and you've got kind of that strength of resume, don't be afraid to flaunt that a little bit and to have some stories in your pocket ready to go, because we all know, right? There's some of those staples. Tell me your standout story. Tell me your biggest struggle. Be ready with those. They're going to be asked, and that preparation I think is key. I'm always impressed by someone who has done their homework, even if they get it wrong, by the way. If they've gone on your website and they've looked at the executive leadership of your team and they've tried to make those connections where they know someone that knows someone, I'm okay if they get the unit count number wrong, but they've done their homework, and I know that they were really trying to come in prepared. The people that come in and we try to have a dialogue and they know nothing about the company, that's telling too. So I probably give you a lot more, Tara, than you were asking for in that question, but I think there's a lot important in that first impression, lasting impression, right?
Yeah, well, I think there's no such thing as too much, because some of the basics, I think what you covered are some basic principles that I think often are forgotten, but so important, because it is the first impression often happening virtually. So I think those are great. And I love that you shared a piece about vulnerability, which is even if you get it wrong, you could still tell that candidate has done a little bit of research and preparation. So I think that's really good that you said that. So Bern, I'm going to need your help. I think based on the number of candidates that we have in terms of keeping time, if we could do about 2.5 minutes per spotlight, if you could keep an eye on the time. So TJ, you will go first, and when we start the timer, I'm going to have on display your responses to the questions. And I love that everyone really put in some great thought to these answers. It really helps a future employer get to know you beyond your resume and your title. So that will be on display, but you by no means you don't have to speak to that. I think since we're going to give you a recording of your spotlight, it'll just be nice to include that. So whatever you're comfortable with, I will transition the slide. Oh, Dena's first. Sorry, but I said TJ a couple times. Let's go that way. Just since I teed it up that way. Bern, are you good to go on your end? Okay, so be prepared when Bern hits that time, she will interrupt just to make sure everyone gets some equal time. So without further ado, TJ Stewart, would you like to introduce yourself and I will put up your slide. Great headshot, by the way. And Bern, you just give us the signal.
Thank you. Hi, I am Tawanna Stewart. I do go by TJ. Most know me as TJ. I began my journey in property management, let's just go with over 2 decades ago. I began as a leasing consultant, boots on the ground, and just starting on the front lines, that taught me so much. The importance of connecting with residents, solving challenging problems creatively, and delivering exceptional service. Over the years, I've been able to work my way up through corporate leadership and overseeing teams, portfolios across the nation, in a lot of diverse markets. And what has fueled my growth is the ability to really cultivate strong relationships, mentor teams to success, and drive results through strategic planning and leadership. I do excel in underperforming assets and really getting those to perform again. Building positive culture is another great strength of mine, and creating innovative solutions to achieve operational excellence. What I'm looking for in my next career home is I'm seeking a company that's really forward thinking, that has a strong vision and emphasis on collaboration and opportunities for growth, but not just for myself, really opportunities for growth for the teams that I lead. I would like to, be able to continue to make an impact, develop teams and growing portfolios and contributing to the success of an organization through, valued leadership, cross collaboration, and innovation. And I really appreciate the time of allowing me to be on here and share my story.
I love that, and I will add, it looks like you are open to relocation. Just for folks that are on this call, do you have any specific regions, or is any place open in the U.S. for you?
I'm open to anywhere that is the right fit. I will say that, my experience and even, overseeing across the nation has primarily been Midwest and East Coast related. So I do have a lot of experience in those markets, but yes, I'm definitely open to work, preferably East Coast. I'm open.
Okay, thank you for that.
Absolutely.
And if you are not in our system, TJ, please get with Bernadette, because she's kind of the wizard of all things that we have for opportunity, especially, you said her love language, East Coast.
Yeah, I would say for anybody, if you're interested in being in our system, you can just email me. It's just Bernadette@msbresources.com. I'll put it in the chat, but I can get you connected with someone, or just at least in there for when we have something come up.
Wonderful. I did actually meet with Kelsey last week. So I think you might have my details, but the more the merrier.
Love it. So I'm gonna work backwards. We talked about the bloopers reel in the beginning, so this is part of it because I messed up the order, but that's okay. So I want to go back to getting a question to Ian. So interviews, they are daunting. They can be, like you kind of talked about, Ian, sometimes there could be panel, there could be multiple. I know that to make the right hiring decision, you need to have several interviews. What's your kind of best piece of advice for the folks on this call for interviewing?
Well, I may have overspoken in the last question you asked, because I think I shared some of that. But I think personal connection is huge. You teed it up in the very complimentary kind of who is Ian. But I think networking is such a big piece, and we are such a small industry. It's funny because you'll go to an NMHC or an Apartmentalize or one of the larger conferences, and people will be like, "There's 10,000 people here," but I don't know about you guys. I go to some of those and I lose my voice because you end up talking for 12 to 14 hours a day, and very few people are strangers, right? And so looking at that network, understanding who you're speaking with, and seeing if there's some commonality. TJ, I just went on your LinkedIn. I worked for George Quay for 17 years. You worked at Weller. We know some of the same people. Kelly Sanders is a friend, right? So, I put that together just by going on your LinkedIn and going, okay, we know some of the same folks. You worked for RPM when it was Roscoe. Cool. So just going through and doing that real quick research and saying, okay, who do we know that's a common thread? Maybe reaching out to that person ahead of the interview to kind of put out that good word for you, I think could be fantastic. I will tell you, when I've done, recent hiring or been a part of kind of the team hiring process, if someone that is a trusted friend reaches out to me and says, "Hey, heard you got something coming up with TJ. Just want to give you my quick 2 cents," and obviously do that with someone you trust to give you a great reference. But nothing wrong with an unsolicited reference, and it goes back to that homework and getting ahead of the interview.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Bern, do you have anything that you want to add from your perspective at all?
I think that the answer to a lot of my questions on this was authenticity. Like, just be your most authentic self. I think we see so many employers nowadays hiring more on culture fit instead of necessarily the background or the education. So if you come across as who you are and what you want and how you would fit into that organization, to me, that's the best way to get in with that hiring manager.
I couldn't agree with you more. Dena, I'm back in order. Now that we've kind of got the gist of the format, I want to make sure that I'm saying your name right. Is that right, Dena? Oh, wait, I can't hear you for some reason. It doesn't show that you're muted, though. No.
It seems like your audio might not be working.
I had the same issue. We can circle back if you want to kind of play around with your audio settings. All right, so let's see who was next. Michelle has not joined the call yet. Brian, Mr. Brian Ericson, my neighbor-ish in Atlanta. How are you? Bern, are you ready to go with your timer?
Yep. Whenever anyone starts talking, I'll just start the time then.
Okay, perfect. Brian, the floor is yours.
Okay, fantastic. So I do have to say I loved these questions, and I'm somewhat tempted to work some of them into my future pitch, but they're a little bit out of the ordinary, so I wasn't quite sure about that. So let me go with my more standard pitch. So I am Brian Ericson. I'm a marketing and customer insights leader, and I have over 10 years of experience in multifamily, in addition to a background in hospitality. My passion really lies in leveraging data-driven strategies to optimize lead generation, enhance brand awareness, and drive business growth. Throughout my career, I've fostered high-performing teams and spearheaded transformative marketing initiatives. Most recently, at Sparrow Partners in the active adult industry, I restructured our marketing team to enhance regional collaboration and optimized our digital marketing efforts to significantly reduce our ad spend while also improving our conversion rates. Before that, I was SVP of marketing at Wood Partners, and I was also involved in strengthening our branding and digital strategies for that luxury apartment portfolio, and resulted in improving our lead-to-lease conversion rates by over 30%, and also earned multiple top awards with Jay Turner for online reputation. Finally, I bring expertise in market research, customer satisfaction, and marketing technology. During my 5 years at Cortland, I led the complete redevelopment of the company's website platform, which resulted in a 150% increase in organic traffic year over year. I thrive really where creativity meets strategy meets analytics. So I think I have a pretty unique combination of skills that enable me to transform big ideas into practical execution. And my passion is, solving complex challenges, focusing on and refining the details that matter, and ultimately driving big results for the company and the teams that I lead. So I'd love to connect and explore how my expertise can help drive success for your organization.
You guys are great at staying under 2 minutes and 30 seconds. It's a lot longer than one would think.
It's amazing. And I do have to call out the quote that you love, because I think just a testament to everybody that took the time to get on this call was, it can be daunting to do something like this. It's unfamiliar, but not giving up and trying something new, I think kind of leads into the Thomas Edison quote that you selected. So I love that. Ian, we're going to toss it back to you for a question, and I got to go backwards since I went all out of order. It is, there we go. There's a lot of ways to get noticed, and I hope, and we hope, and one of the reasons why MSB is doing this is giving you a YouTube clip that's private to you that you can use as your audition reel. We hope that that's something that you'll use in your outreach. But Ian, what's maybe something that you've seen that has gotten your attention?
Yeah, well, it's and you put it here, in the LinkedIn or through socials, right? A lot of us are very accessible, and if I have a meeting coming up with someone or an interview coming up with someone, and they do reach out to LinkedIn ahead of time, and just as simple as, hey, looking forward to our meeting, next week, just wanted to say hello. I think things like that are huge. Also, leveraging your network. I would invite everyone here that's open, or tell your friends, go out there and figure out who the trendsetters are, and who some of the big names in the industry are. The Jay Parsons, the Joe Summers of the world, that are extremely well connected, that in liking their post, or don't make a comment just to make a comment, but if you have some meaningful feedback on something they post, that exposure and being seen, I think is really a great way to garner some of that attention. But yeah, reaching out ahead of time, I think fantastic. Leveraging social media, great. Facebook, I would say, you kind of walk the line. I have a Facebook. You'll see my kids and my dog on there. You'll never see anything political. You'll never see anything, that would tip my hand or be considered, offensive. So if you have a Facebook like mine, for sure, connect, reach out that way. If you put a lot of your political views or your personal life that maybe you wouldn't necessarily want an employer digging in, I would recommend against that. So, but I think that's definitely a great way to get out there. I also want to circle back, and I know we're short on time. Brian, one of the things that you did that stood out to me right away, you name dropped, and in a really great way. Cortland, Wood. I'm going, oh wow, I know those companies. Those resonate with me, right? So, one of the other things I would say is in your elevator pitch, or as you're having that interview, don't be afraid to list the names of the places that you work that have notoriety, because those will quickly resonate with an employer, as long as they're, well reputable firms, which those are.
And I do have to shout out, Brian was on the call yesterday, speaking of Wood Partners, with Steve Halsey, where we did the mentorship framework call. And Brian, I think you and I have both had the pleasure of working for such an amazing leader in multifamily with Steve Halsey. So great guy. Dena.
Absolutely.
You think we're good on audio? Do you want to test it out? No. You know what? And I am the least techie person. Do you want to maybe restart your computer and rejoin? Maybe that will clear the error. And don't worry, we'll get back to you. So when I see you pop on, we'll get you back. Okay, let's keep moving. Kyra. Yay.
Hi, thanks all. Kyra, it's a pleasure to join and to be able to meet you guys. I have been in the property management world for just over 10 years. In that time, I've come from the SFR side, been really intrigued to look into the multifamily side, as I see a lot of similarities in how those projects are managed. They definitely have their differences in management of them, but the fundamental passion that I have is driven by people. And when it comes to building housing, this is a fundamental human need that we've had since the beginning of time for mankind. Being able to play a role in that and help create strategies and make decisions that benefit how people live, and that also really help support that evolving lifestyle change, is something that excites me. You can really see it through the decades of how we change how we look at building homes and the features that are included. Like, for example, everyone's really about these walk-in showers now, whereas 10 years ago, that wasn't really the case, right? So you see all of these little changes that happen and how homes are constructed that really kind of change that to that lifestyle. So that has been my driving passion, is to really help build beautiful homes, maintain beautiful residences where people are going to raise their families and share their memories. So my experience has really trailed over field operations, so renovations, turnover, maintenance. Most recently, I've been working in vendor management for the last 5 years, vendor management, account management. And I think my passion really, again, was coming down to the people and seeing who are the people who are repairing the homes, who are the people who are building the residences, and making sure that they felt supported. They're an intrinsic part of carrying out those visions. So it's something that I've really enjoyed the opportunity to go to some conferences and shake hands and meet people and see the people who are really the backbone to helping this project move forward. So in that experience, I think my strengths really lie in my appreciation of people, building effective teams, utilizing those teams and harnessing everyone's individual strengths to really be best in class within each of those companies that I've worked to support. So currently I'm at Home Partners of America. Before that, I've worked for...
You have to cut you off, sorry.
Oh, no, you were great. Thank you all.
Nice to meet you. Thank you so much. Great movie choice, by the way. Who doesn't love Forrest Gump, right? So, Ian, I think I misspoke on this slide actually, because I can't remember if you were actually in leasing, but I know you've had some different roles. But were you in leasing, and I got that right?
Yeah, I started leasing. Yep.
Okay, that's what I was like. I thought I did. So as people kind of evolve, they change careers. Sometimes they can change which side of the business they're on. We often see suppliers going to owner manager and vice versa. I've done that. What advice would you kind of give for people who are looking at changing directions in their career?
Yeah, I think a lot of us have done that, and sometimes intentionally and sometimes not intentionally, right? You go where the opportunity takes you. And in doing that, I will say, having that open mindset early in your career will really help you. You know, based on my personality, if you would have said that I would have been in operations for as long as I was, and I think it then came full circle, I probably would have been like, nah, I would go marketing, because I'm a bit more outgoing and certainly, you know, we'll call it have the gift of gab. That being said, that's not where the opportunities were. And so as I wanted to move my career forward, I was literally looking at the P&Ls and doing the owner's variance reports and, you know, speaking to cap rates and you know, the call it the acquisitions and the business side of the business. I think that probably in the long run made me more well-rounded. So I'm really thankful for those times. But I would say why I was able to do that was, and I think I put that in one of my 3 words, is having that inquisitive spirit, understanding why we're making the decisions we're making. Why, you know, when you're working on site, it's very hard to understand, well, why won't the owners just give us more concessions so we can get these units leased? Or why are they holding the line so hard on this rent when our competitors are $50 more than we are? Well, you know, understanding what $50 per unit at 300 units does to a property that's a 6 cap at disposition, and realizing that $50 per unit has millions of dollars of downstream ramifications. You don't understand that when you're sitting in the seat, but don't be afraid to ask the questions. And if someone doesn't have the answer or kind of brushes you off, that's okay. keep asking. Someone will eventually get you that answer. And by the way, that same someone might be the one that goes, wow, this person really wants to learn more, and I want to teach them more because we can move them forward. So I think, you know, that inquisitive spirit will allow you to be able to shift those gears. And we both know from the supplier side back to the management side, so many people that have jumped that fence once or twice or three times. And I think that's perfectly acceptable. Again, makes you more well-rounded.
I love that. And I think, you know, Bernadette has been more on like the talent side and recruiting and seen a lot more than I have in these years. But I think challenging it a little bit, being curious to challenge a little bit of the status quo. And to your point, if a leader sees that you're taking interest in asking those questions, I think that that's one of those things that gets you noticed, where you're going a little bit above and beyond. Bern, anything you want to add there?
No, that was a better way of saying what I had written down as my answer.
Okay, we're going to go back to Dena and see if the restarting, did that help you? Let's try it. Fingers crossed. No. But we still have some time. So if there's anything that you can do to tweak on your end, we have a couple other things that we can do in the meantime. I do want to share something before I ask Ian another question. Something that we're really passionate about. We talked about LinkedIn, and Ian was talking about when you send a message maybe ahead of a call or a meeting. So Bernadette and I love using LinkedIn voice message. Does anyone use LinkedIn voice message? Oh, see, so let me share an untapped resource for you. Ian, well, let me ask Ian, have you ever received a message from somebody?
I have received, I have not sent out.
So if I can share a couple of tips and tricks, and this is one part passion to always sound human and authentic, and I love just being on the phone. I too have a gift for gab. But when I found out this feature existed, it blew my mind because it allows you to really stand out from others, especially in a job interview process. So if you know that you have an interview coming up with Ian in a week, what a way to really blow his mind to send him a LinkedIn voice message. There's YouTube articles all over the place. It will take you, it gives you 1 minute and then it will cut you off, but it's like a walkie-talkie. So if you have to be first connections with the person. So, you know, send out, hopefully you're doing that before interviews, is connecting with the folks ahead of time. And then instead of just a text in LinkedIn, try out that video message. But if I may, try it out on people you know first, because you're going to make a couple of mistakes and you'll do what I did, I'm sure, which is, hey, Ian, it's Tara, period. It's so nice to, dang it. And then you're like, no, it's not text. It's literally like leaving a voicemail. So, Bernadette, I know we've kind of played around with it. Can you think of another tip or trick that you've seen that really has helped a candidate stand out?
Well, on that LinkedIn voice messaging, once you start recording it, when you stop recording it, it sends. You don't get a do-over. That's the one major thing that you have to practice before you go in to do it. As soon as you press that button, you are locked into sending that. I know I said video, and actually I'm going to use how we met, Tara, is you were working for a different organization and they used video messages that you could put into emails or different things. And I loved that. I hate being on video. I hate my voice because I come this Philly accent. When I hear it back, it drives me crazy. But when other people use them, I absolutely love them.
It's a great, authentic way. Does anyone want to share a tip or trick before we try Dena again? Oh, she popped off. Maybe she's trying from her.
Sorry. Is Dena still there? I was just going to volunteer, maybe helping her, walking her through the settings to see if maybe it's either the voice or something. She popped off. Okay.
She's here.
And can you hear phone?
Yes, I can hear you. There's a little bit of a delay. Say again.
Okay. Who was that TJ that wanted to help? Because that would be great if she could help on the sidelines. I love it.
But we can actually hear you now.
If
So
not, things works, yeah.
Okay. My background is a mess and I cannot see myself, so I don't know what I look like.
Well, I will tell you, everything looks good. There's nothing distracting, so I think you're fine. And here's the thing. I think I'm actually kind of glad that this happened because I think you have to roll with the punches sometimes, right? And we're all
Yes.
human. Things happen, no judgment, and we're good. So I'm going to back up to your slide.
Okay. And
And
you know, Dena, this week is a technological mess across a million platforms. So don't worry about it. LinkedIn is a mess. Everything has been a mess this week. So
Well, the truth is, this is how this is like I experience this a lot. Sometimes it just takes me a few times to get things, and then we're good. So I love when people ask questions and have things going on like this. However, I'll start talking about myself now. So hello, everyone. My name is Dena Mabe, and I am a marketing and communications specialist, most recently with BGSF. They are a staffing company, now considered a global workforce solutions company. Unfortunately, I was laid off in December. However, I am using this as an opportunity to really learn more about what is going on in the staffing world now. How can I benefit someone else? Because through this, I mean, I've realized the job market is tough. And so what I really want to do, I loved what you said, Tara, excuse me. I love that you said it warms your heart. It fills your heart to give back. And that's what I want to do no matter where I am. So I did start in 2002 in multifamily, started in leasing, went to marketing to property manager, and most recently, I do have my resume here. I cannot think right now because I'm a little bit nervous. But I was with BG for 6 years working remotely. I started as a director of sales, basically recruiting candidates for clients and working with clients to fill their roles. Then I moved into the marketing department where I helped also doing campaigns, a lot of interaction, employee engagement across the company, and working on Sprout Social, working with Salesforce Marketing Cloud, vPro, and then I moved into my favorite role, which was communications engagement specialist, and that was more of an internal role to just tell our story on our websites, talk about our core values, really get engagement all across the company and even with our global partners. And I just adored it. So I'm hoping that my next role, I can make a positive impact. And I really want to show people their value, help them believe in themselves, whether it's communications, marketing, or recruiting. I'm open to any of that. And I appreciate you guys allowing me this opportunity.
well, I'm so glad I got a chance to hear your voice.
Thank you. Yes.
Mercury in retrograde, I think that might be something. The planets are doing something. But thank you. I'm going to go to a question for Ian about kind of the competitive landscape of things and anything that you're kind of seeing holistically from our industry, a trend or a challenge that you think the candidates should kind of keep in mind.
Yeah, and challenge, opportunity, right? Depends on the glass full or the glass half empty. But when we talk about trends, there's been a few, right? And we can call it a lot of different things. But when we look at property operations, and this is the supplier side's doing the same way and trying to solve the need, but we're looking at how to be more efficient on the property operations side. Is that through consolidation of positions? Is that through sharing of resources? And so there's a lot of different ways to kind of come at that. But I'm seeing maintenance teams that are going from an individual team to overseeing 5 properties, and you're hiring more specialties, more of an HVAC licensed individual or a plumber instead of just a generalist, but they're being spread across a geographical area instead of just one property. And that's I would say a trend that's turning into the norm. We're certainly seeing a lot more of that. So being apprised of that, being able to speak to that, and there's, and I say that on the supplier side too, because there's a lot of groups that are trying to solve for that as well. The other thing that, we touched on it a little bit just in some of the elevator conversations here, but, the BTR space is the newest, latest, and greatest, right? When I talk to people that are raising equity or trying to deploy equity, tell me about BTR, you know, and understanding what BTR is, because there's a few different things. We talk about SFR, which is disparate single sites, you know, spread all over. But BTR, different things to different people. I've seen townhome communities and people are calling that BTR. I would argue, is it? You know, and then, you know, true BTR where maybe it's 100 or 200 homes, but it's being built basically like horizontal apartment, right? It's one single tax parcel. So it's still being run as an apartment community with an amenitization, but it's, you know, it's 11 to 1400 square foot cottage homes that have their own individual nuance, and understanding the differences between that and apartments. I think being up to date on those trends, extremely important, because that is one of the directions that the industry is really pushing towards. So one of the other things that I would bring up, and this is a personal pet peeve, but I've talked to friends in the industry and they agree, you know, is it supplier or is it vendor? Is it a tenant or is it a resident? Is it a complex or is it a community? I'll let you guys to decide what you want to call those. But I know personally, the softer ones are the ones that resonate, right? When someone says tenant, I cringe. You know, when someone says complex, I was like, prison? Cool, right? So, you know, understanding that vernacular, especially if you're coming from the vendor side and speaking to someone on the other side, making sure you know the terminology that best resonates with your audience.
That is a hot button for me, and I'm glad that you brought that up. Because I agree, it is softer, and complex makes you think there's a problem. And community is it's a whole different vibe.
Right? Tenant is just heartless, or, you know, or I look at that as a commercial term, right? That's okay, cool. Your tenant is 7-Eleven. That's neat. Your tenant is not, you know, Wendy Olson. That's your resident, right? So it's just that difference in verbiage, I think, makes a big difference when you're having those conversations.
I want to spend the next minute, if something comes to mind, and then I do want to try and have like a little bit of an open forum to round out the last few minutes of the call. But Ian, while you're kind of still talking, is there anything kind of in your 2-decade plus career that, looking back, a skill that helped you succeed, but wasn't anything that you thought would really matter when you started out?
That is a fantastic question. Amenability, flexibility, and I don't know if that's a skill, but it's certainly something that you can grow into. You know, when I was advancing my career at a more rapid pace was during the great financial collapse, right? So, you know, in 2006, 2007, I was made a regional. In late 2008, I was made a vice president. What a challenging time to get promoted, right? Every property is you know, on fire in some way, shape, or form. You know, vendors aren't being paid, mortgages are going delinquent, even on the nicest and best located assets. And so, you know, the flexibility to learn through that, and to take lessons away from that, I think was probably what helped me advance my career, and continue to succeed is, you know, not hanging my head and going, oh, woe is me, this is such a horrible situation, but understanding what I could glean and learn from that. And certainly, you know, I would say the last 2 years were nothing like 2008, but there's some parity. There's some things that I've been able to go back to those times and go, okay, what did I do then that I was able to learn from? And you know, it was being flexible, and then, you know, understanding that setbacks could be opportunities too, right? I was laid off 2 years ago. It sucked, right? I can empathize with everyone that's going through it. You know, the emotions that come with that, and you know, again, the ability to then have the confidence to lean on your network and look at your experiences and go, okay, I'm gonna be all right. I just need to pick myself up here and understand what I want to do next. And that's when it comes to what I would say is the other side of the interview, and that's interviewing the company that you're going to go to. I think it's just as important to find the right fit. I've had friends who, you know, I look at the resume and it has 3 companies in the last 3 years, and you go, ooh, why the job jumping? And you have those conversations, and more often than not, and it's people that I trust, because you can sugarcoat, right? But sometimes that job jumping is, it wasn't what I thought it was going to be, or it wasn't the right opportunity, and then you go, well, how'd you get it? And more often than not, when you have those conversations, it's one of two things: either I was at a line and I bought it, or I didn't do enough homework on the culture of the company or the expectations of that company before I jumped at the opportunity. So, some of those learning lessons, I think, have as recently as a few years ago, taught me what to do, on a go forward basis.
It's almost like we choreographed this segue, but we didn't. But you you led into the last piece that I wanted to chat about, which I too have learned the hard way. And you're right, Ian. It is a two-way interview, and there are a lot of, I think sometimes people feel the pressure and the emotion just based on the situation that they're in and how dire maybe they need to take the next opportunity. And sometimes you hope that what you're being told is exactly what they're going to deliver, but sometimes it doesn't align. And that is one of the reasons why my focus is workplace solutions, and what we kind of, to make it fun, how do you keep your people? How do you create a sticky organization? And these are some of the answers we've received from some folks recently who've been on these calls. And I show this so you can keep these things in mind as you're interviewing companies, because you are interviewing them as well, to Ian's point. I would like to spend the last few minutes, does anyone, even in the gallery, the sidelines, does anyone want to kind of chime in, share anything, a story, tip or trick? I think I said tick or trip, but I meant tip or trick. Bernadette, do you have anything to close out? Was this helpful? I guess I should ask.
My tip or trick would be, so again, to like lead into how I wound up with MSB, I had these like really awesome job offers that I wanted to take, and based on just certain things, I wasn't able to take them. And the reason MSB decided to move forward with interviewing me for them was the way that I handled those situations. And it was remaining calm, staying up front with them, not just disappearing on them, doing things, again, back to that authenticity piece, but making sure to stay professional. That was the entire reason that I got the interview to work at this organization that I've been at for 10 years. So I would just put that out there as a tip or trick. Just stay authentic, stay up front. Don't just disappear if you're interviewing for something and you don't want to take it. If you have to rescind an offer, do it. People are going to like that much better than they would if you just didn't show up on your first day and disappeared. As Ian said earlier, it is a small industry. It's big, but it's small. Everybody knows everyone, and like those situations are going to get passed down for you. So just like do the best you can to manage that the best you can.
Well
I do
said.
have a quick question, if you don't mind. I'm so sorry to interrupt.
Oh, no, go ahead. And I want to make sure, Kyra, you had your hand up. Do you have a question after TJ?
I do, yeah.
Okay. All right, TJ, you go, and then we'll go to Kyra.
Okay, thank you so much. In terms of, Ian, you mentioned speaking about centralization in terms of like maintenance. My question is, do you see or where do you see that going? And have you had experience with centralization for like the leasing part of things, and maybe even assistant for the office side of things in offices? I'm just curious.
Oh, you're muted. Ian, you're muted.
Someone had to do it, and it was me. Yes is the short answer, and there's a long answer there, and it's been the topic of a lot of the panels that I've been on. I think a lot of companies went office first and then looked at maintenance, and that assistant manager position was probably the most logical, because it was a step back in time. When I entered the industry in the late 90s, those were called bookkeepers, and they were already a centralized position, and then we started putting them on site. Right, so I think it was a bit of back to the future. I think everyone's talking about it. A lot of people have started to doing it, and the jury is out on its success, and that jury is based on the implementation, because everyone's running a congruent but not identical playbook. So yeah, I can go deep into the conversation, and it's a passion of mine. because it's not a one-size-fits-all approach either, right? It's kind of like when people talk about, and we'll put the loss aside, when people talk about revenue management, and I go, well, are you a value add in the middle of renovation? Are you a lease up? Because that solution might not be perfect as it relates to timing of what's going on at the asset. I think centralization is a similar story.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I would love to connect maybe after to pick your brain on some things. So
Yep,
thank
I'll
you.
have Wendy a call, and then after that, for sure, let's have a conversation.
Thank
I
you.
think Teacher's going to send you a LinkedIn voice message. Kyra, you want to go forward with your question?
Yeah, so mine's just really quick. Obviously, I'm from the SFR world, very interested in multifamily, and I think it's if given those opportunities to network, like let's say in person and having conversations, are there any recommendations on the best way to show like my skill set and how that would be transferable to be considered in multifamily?
Was that to Ian or to anyone?
I think it could really apply to both. I'm interested in Ian's perspective, but I think as well, Tara, just knowing your point of view as well, because I know like, you know, you're looking at these candidates and resumes daily, right? So I know that there's going to be things that maybe appeal to the recruiter side, and there's going to be items that appeal to the hiring manager.
So for me, on your resume, I would say speaking to the operational control and specifically the expense control that you would bring to the table from understanding SFR and how that would translate to a BTR and then to apartment, I think would probably be the best inroad. How to make those inroads. I'm a big believer in LinkedIn and, you know, researching who is making moves in the BTR space, finding out about some of those conferences and who's hosting those, and really kind of pounding the pavement on the BTR side and figuring out where your parity and experience is. And if you're a BTR expert, I think it's not a big leap to then say, well, yeah, I understand multifamily as well. Because we're all kind of, they're certainly intertwined. But I think where people that have a real skill set in SFR have an opportunity in multi is their expense control. Because we're talking about, you know, staffing levels and how to do, you know, self-guided touring and remote maintenance. You're already there. You've been doing that. And so where the industry is trying to catch up, you're ahead of the curve. So I would find ways to package that for yourself in the conversation.
I would just add, as we kind of close out, that don't be afraid to share that you do believe there's a transferable skill set there and call it out. Don't assume that whether it's Bernadette looking at your resume or Ian looking at your resume, that they're going to make the assumption that you know that. If people are still using cover letters, I often don't do cover letters, and I'll just go right for a LinkedIn voice message or something more unique and just call that out. Like, hey, I've been in the SFR industry for X amount of time. I really think that these particular skills that I have would be transferable. I would love the opportunity to get my foot in the door in multifamily. Just really kind of owning it and calling it out would be my opinion. Bernadette, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I would say, unfortunately, for a lot of recruiters, such as myself or us, we are confined a lot of times to what the client says they need. And a lot of times, unless you come with that specific information, the client won't listen. Like, we have to really get them to listen to us to say, okay, these are transferable. But outside of working with a recruiter, I would say make your LinkedIn say the same thing. Put those buzzwords and keywords in there and be a little bit more detailed in the descriptions of what you do, because that's what, if the AI is searching for it, that's what they're searching for. If I'm out there searching certain things, like I would pull you into things. And if a hiring manager is doing that and they see you and they see how detailed you are with it, then I can see them like actually reaching out and seeing how those skills would be transferable.
Great. Thank you all. That's amazing feedback for me. I appreciate it.
I know we ran over a few minutes. Ian, thank you so much for your time and your insights. It was very valuable. For those that spoke up and did the spotlight, give us a couple of days, but we will be emailing you individually with your YouTube clip as promised so that you can use that for your outreach. And then also on February 20th at 11 Eastern will be our next Open to Work Spotlight call. So if you know anyone who is looking, or if you yourself are still looking, you don't have to just come to one. You are more than welcome to come again if you're still needing the assistance. So thank you, everybody. Thanks to Bernadette, my co-host, and we wish you luck in your job search, and we're happy to help you out.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Great call. Thanks so much.